It was supposed to be the grandest night in the village of Aboma. The sky was clear, painted with a full moon as round and bright as the eyes of the newborn goats. Lanterns floated between the trees. Drummers sat by the fires, ready to play their rhythms into the sky. But then, the wind stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. The flame in every lantern froze upright. The trees stopped swaying. Even the smoke from the roasting yams didn't curl, it just hung, heavy, silent, like the night was holding its breath. And all eyes turned to Acua. She stood in the middle of the great gathering circle, draped in a red and gold wrapper, her braids woven with cowries, her skin glowing like it drank moonlight. She was beautiful, too beautiful, so beautiful that it made the elders shift in their chairs, and even the village priest looked twice. The whispers had always followed her. Acua is not just a girl, she's a river spirit pretending to be human. She doesn't cast a shadow at noon. Her smile can make a man forget his name. But it didn't matter, because tonight she was to marry Prince Kojo, son of Chief Iamba, a future king, a warrior, a hunter, a man whose name carried fear across 7 rivers. Acua had chosen him, or rather, she'd allowed him to choose her. And she had promised him the one thing the elders demanded in a wife, purity. She said the words with her own lips during the courtship feast. "I have never been touched by a man," she had said, eyes calm, hands folded. Kojo believed her. His father nodded. The priest cast cowrie shells that confirmed her honesty, or so he thought, and the village rejoiced. But the night of the wedding, the drums did not play. The wind, always wild in the hills of Aboma, refused to whisper. The animals refused to eat, and a crow, only one, circled 3 times above the sacred tree, then flew off into the dark. Some elders took it as a bad omen. Chief Iamba, known for his pride, dismissed it with a laugh. "The spirits are merely watching beauty unfold," he said. But his wife, Nana Didi, watched Acua closely. Her wrinkled hands clutched her staff tighter than usual. That night, Kojo and Acua were led to the Chamber of Union, a hut reserved for newlyweds, sealed with ancestral herbs and silence. They were to emerge at sunrise, and with them, the white cloth, the sign of a bride's sacred truth. But when dawn broke, only Kojo emerged, alone. His wrapper was tied in a rush, his face pale, jaw clenched, eyes lost. He did not speak. He did not look back. He simply walked out of the chamber, crossed the courtyard, and vanished into the forest without a word. No white cloth in his hands, no drum beats, no victory cries, just silence, and then wind. Wild, sudden, violent. It tore through the lanterns, scattering ashes and palm leaves. It snatched shawls from the backs of women and knocked a drum into the fire. Children screamed. Elders ducked. Only Nana Didi stood still. She pointed her staff at the wedding hut. Something is wrong, and it is old, older than this village. Minutes later, the village warriors returned with Acua. She was dressed. Her beads were neat. Her eyes glassy but unreadable. "Where is Kojo?" someone asked. She smiled. "Gone. Perhaps to clear his head." "Where is the cloth?" another asked. She tilted her head. It was unnecessary. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A bride not offering the cloth? Unheard of. The crowd surged, but Nana Didi stepped forward. "Enough," she shouted. "This is no matter for mouths. This is a matter for spirits." She looked at Acua, whose smile faded just for a moment. And in that moment, Nana saw it. A flicker. A mask. Something behind the girl's eyes. Something watching. That night, the baobab tree cried. The old one by the shrine. Real tears. Thick sap pouring like water, running down the bark in long, shimmering streaks. Children ran screaming. And from the shadows, the village priest came, his staff carved with the heads of 2 snakes. He touched the tears. He sniffed the sap. He turned to the elders. "She has angered something old, something sacred, and it waits to be named." In her hut, Acua sat alone. But she was not afraid. Not even when the fire dimmed on its own. Not even when her reflection in the mirror blinked out of rhythm with her. She whispered, "It wasn't supposed to go this way." and behind her a soft voice answered, "You made a promise that was not yours to make." Outside, the wind began to return. But this time it didn't dance. It howled, like it was trying to warn the living or wake the dead. When the sun finally rose above the hills of Aboma, its light felt wrong. The birds chirped, but only once. The village goats refused to rise, and in the ceremonial square, the white cloth meant to bless a new marriage remained missing. The people gathered with nervous hearts, their eyes darting between the wedding hut and the baobab tree, which still wept slow, golden tears. Prince Kojo had vanished into the forest, and Akua had said nothing. She emerged mid-morning, wrapped in the same ceremonial cloth, face calm, eyes unreadable. She walked past the villagers, past the drummers, past even the elders, and returned to her hut as if nothing had happened. And still the white cloth, the sacred proof of her untouched womb, was nowhere to be seen. In Aboma, this was not just scandal. It was spiritual betrayal. The council of elders met under the talking tree by midday. Chief Iamba's voice was like thunder. "She has mocked our law, mocked my son, mocked the spirits of our ancestors." But Nana Didi, the elder queen mother, raised a wrinkled hand. "She is not foolish. She is hiding something or someone." A warrior was sent to find Kojo. He returned before sunset alone. He left his hunting bow, his shoes, his goatskin pouch. It is as if he stepped into the forest and never looked back. The chief clenched his fists. She bewitched him. But Nana Didi shook her head. She shamed him. And now the ancestors are stirring. That night, they decided a spiritual trial must be held. Word spread fast. Children stopped playing. Women stopped weaving. Even the birds flew low and quiet. The village square was swept clean. The circle of ashes was lit with fire. At its center, the same fire pit used to burn false oaths now glowed with slow red coals. The priest arrived wearing his bone necklace and the mask of the truth seeker, a long black face carved from ebony with no mouth. Akua was summoned. She did not resist. She came barefoot, her wrapper clean, her back straight. She stepped into the circle, not like a guilty woman, but like a queen. Even the priest paused before speaking. "Akua, daughter of Amma," his voice echoed. "Where is the cloth of your marriage night?" Akua looked to the ground. "It did not bleed," she said softly. Gasps rippled. The priest raised his hand. "Then by village law, you are to be cast out." But Nana Didi stepped forward, her voice calm. "Let her speak her truth before the spirits. If she lies, the ashes will burn her tongue." A hush fell. Akua looked up, eyes glistening, jaw tight. Then she spoke. "When I was 13, she began, I was taken." The crowd leaned in. "Taken by a traveler who called himself a trader. He offered salt and cloth to my mother and asked to share our shelter for the rain." Her voice did not break. "He came into my bed when the storm was loudest, covered my mouth, took what was never his." Gasps rose again, this time softer. "I never told anyone. I bled in secret. I buried the cloth with my tears. I carried that silence into womanhood, hoping I could start over. But when Prince Kojo asked me of my purity, I lied." The priest said nothing. The fire crackled louder. Nana Didi whispered to the spirits, "She has spoken." Then something strange happened. The coals turned blue. The wind, silent for 2 days, blew once, warm and gentle, and a small snake slithered through the ashes, coiling at Akua's feet. Then, slowly, it turned and slithered away. The priest turned to the crowd. "The spirits say she did not sin. She survived." Still, not everyone was satisfied. From the back, Chief Iamba's voice thundered, "She lied, and in lying, she cursed my son." The crowd murmured, but Nana Didi rose again. "Your son left not because she lied," she said, "but because he could not face his own shame. He judged a woman by blood, not by truth." The chief's eyes narrowed. "And now what? Do we welcome her back with singing?" "No," Nana said. "We ask her to lead." Now the murmurs turned to gasps again. Akua looked stunned, but the priest nodded. "This village has known too much silence. Let her teach others that survival is not shame, and truth is not weakness." The baobab tree behind them stopped crying, and a single petal from the sacred moonflower fell onto the ashes. The trial was over. That night, Acua sat by her fire alone, but not afraid. Not anymore. From the shadows, a young girl approached, barely 15, eyes wide, holding her own silence. Acua opened her arms. The girl collapsed into them, and a new kind of healing began. The moon rose full and pale, like an ancestral eye watching the village of Aboma from above. The baobab tree no longer cried, but now it whispered. Leaves rustled with secrets, and even the owls sat silently on its branches as if waiting. Tonight was no ordinary night. It was the night the spirits would speak back. The circle of ashes had been drawn wider this time, twice the size, with charmed chalk made from crushed bones and burnt yam leaves. Red palm oil was drizzled at the edges, calabashes of river water were placed at the four corners, and feathers from black owls were tied to sticks that marked the north. The people gathered again, sitting cross-legged in a ring of nervous quiet, and in the center stood Acua, barefoot, wrapped in white, her braids bound in copper wire. She looked not like a girl on trial, but like a storm that refused to bend. The priest arrived, this time without his staff. Instead, he carried a drum made from lion skin, and he beat it once, deep, low, and final. Boom! The sound echoed through the trees, past the farms, across the still river. Let truth rise from dust, he said, and lies turn to smoke. Then he called the spirits. He lit 3 bundles of sacred herbs, sage, bitter cola, and dreamroot. As the smoke coiled upward, he began to chant in the tongue of the ancestors, a language older than the trees. The smoke turned gold, and then it moved. It did not float. It curled like it had a mind, a purpose. It shaped itself into figures. A tall, faceless woman, draped in a veil of smoke. A crawling shadow with too many arms. And then one more. A small girl, head lowered, hands covering her face. The crowd gasped. Some cried. One woman fainted. The priest's voice dropped low. Spirits, this child of the soil has spoken her pain, but you demand truth beyond lips. He turned to Acua. Stand still and let your spirit be seen. Acua closed her eyes. She breathed. Then the wind picked up, slow and rising. Her wrapper fluttered. The coals glowed brighter. Suddenly, the figure of the small girl in smoke walked toward her, and when it touched her chest, it disappeared. Gone. The faceless woman stepped forward next. She circled Acua once, twice, then vanished into her back. Acua staggered, but did not fall. Finally, the many-armed shadow crept close, but this time, it did not enter her. Instead, it bowed, then shattered into sparks. The wind died again. Silence. Then the priest raised his arms. Her pain is real. Her spirit is clean. Her lie was not evil, but protection. He turned to the crowd, and the ancestors say she owes no shame. A cry of release spread through the villagers. Some wept, others clapped, but one man in the back rose to his feet, Chief Iamba. His face was hard, eyes narrow. My son is still gone. He stepped forward. And this trial speaks nothing of the future. What now, priest? What becomes of a bride without blood? The priest looked to the sky, then at Acua, then at Nana Didi, who now walked into the circle without invitation. She held a clay bowl filled with oil, herbs, and an egg wrapped in red cloth. Aboma must change, she said. From this day forward, we judge not purity by cloth, but by courage. She smashed the egg at Acua's feet. A flash of light, and the smoke turned blue again. This time, no spirits appeared. Only wind. Pure, warm wind, wrapping around Acua's shoulders like a blessing. The people felt it. Not fear, but truth. That night, Acua sat beneath the baobab tree, alone. Until footsteps approached, it was the priest. He removed his mask, revealing his tired, lined face. You have cracked the wall, he said softly. Now, they must learn how to walk through it. Acua didn't speak. She simply looked up at the moon. High, watching, whole. The winds had calmed, but the spirits had not left. That night, after the trial, while the village slept beneath the moon's silver gaze, Acua could not. She sat beneath the baobab tree, where the roots twisted like old secrets and the bark still held the scent of sacred ash. The warmth of acceptance from the villagers felt real, but something inside her remained unsettled. The smoke had revealed her truth, but it had also held back. The third spirit, the one with many arms, had not entered her. It had bowed and shattered. But why? From the shadows, Nana Didi approached. She walked slowly, leaning on her carved staff, her wraps fluttering slightly in the soft night breeze. "You feel it too," the elder said, not as a question but as fact. Acua looked up. "There is more," she whispered. "Something deeper." Nana Didi nodded. "There always is. The spirits never reveal everything at once. They teach in layers." She sat beside her. "There is something buried, Acua. Something that didn't come from you, but still lives inside you." Acua's chest tightened. She remembered the merchant, the man who'd taken her innocence, the face she'd never truly seen, the smell of salt and iron, the one who vanished by dawn. And suddenly something clicked. What if, she said slowly, he was not a stranger at all? That night, she returned to the spirit hut. Alone. She lit the herbs again, bitter cola, dream root, dried snake leaves. She crushed charcoal with her fingers and smeared it beneath her eyes. And she called to the smoke, not with words, but with memory. She closed her eyes, let the night flood back, and whispered, "Show me what I was never meant to see." The smoke answered. It rose fast this time, angrier, darker. It spun wildly in the hut until the walls trembled and the fire dimmed. Then the shapes came again. The veiled woman. The girl. But this time a new figure appeared. A man, tall, wrapped in trader's cloth, a mask hanging loosely around his neck. His face was hidden, but his ring glinted in the light. A snake carved in gold. Acua's eyes widened. She'd seen that ring before. Once during a chieftain's feast, on the hand of Chief Iamba. Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. The smoke twisted. The image sharpened. The masked trader, young, strong, but clearly Iamba, walked into a hut where a younger version of Acua lay asleep. She turned away, but the spirit smoke made her watch. Not the act, but the truth, the betrayal. And then the ring fell into the dust. The girl's tears disappeared into the mattress, and the smoke shattered again. Acua screamed, not in pain, but in awakening. Everything she thought she knew was false. She hadn't lied to Kojo. She had been violated by his father, the same man who stood in judgment, the same man who accused her of shaming their bloodline. He was the shame. He was the silence that poisoned the air. Outside, thunder rolled. A storm brewed, sudden and furious. Acua walked into the night, hair wild, eyes glowing with rage and purpose. The baobab tree lit up from inside, its roots pulsing like veins, its branches shaking without wind. Elders ran from their huts. The priests stumbled out, sensing something ancient had awakened. But Acua walked straight to the chief's house. Villagers followed behind her, silent as ghosts. She entered the compound without knocking. And there, sitting near his fire pit, drinking palm wine with his remaining sons, sat Chief Iamba. He turned slowly. "You walk boldly now," he said. Acua didn't flinch. She raised her hand and dropped something at his feet. A ring. Snake-shaped. Gold. The chief froze. The wine gourd trembled in his hand. "What is this?" he whispered. "Your truth," Acua replied. The one the spirits spat back into the fire. He looked around, realizing others had heard. The priest, Nana Didi, young warriors, even Kojo's favorite cousin. "Lies," he hissed, but Nana Didi stepped forward. "I cast those herbs myself. That ring holds no lies." A wind blew through the compound, lifting Acua's wrap like a banner. Chief Iamba rose to speak, but the fire behind him exploded, throwing sparks into the air. A black owl shrieked overhead. The spirits had spoken. The crowd didn't need judgment, only truth. Iamba was stripped of his staff that night, his name scratched from the wall of chiefs. He did not fight. He only looked at Acua with hollow eyes and whispered, You were never meant to remember." She turned away. "I wasn't meant to forget." That night, the wind returned to a boma, not in rage, but in release. The baobab tree no longer whispered. It sang. And from that day forward, no woman in a boma was asked for a white cloth. Only her truth. The next morning, the wind returned to a boma, but it did not howl. It hummed. It sang through the palm fronds. It lifted the smoke of breakfast fires like a prayer. It danced through the yam fields and played with the braids of children who didn't yet understand what had changed, but felt it in their bones. The curse was broken, though it had never truly been a curse. Only silence, only shame buried deep in dust, and now the dust had spoken. Acua did not wake in fear. She woke in clarity. The spirits had not punished her. They had guided her, through fire, through pain, through truth. She had stood alone. And now, she did not have to anymore. By mid-morning, she returned to the square, not as a witness, not as a victim, but as a woman reborn. Nana Didi met her there, already waiting with a woven stool and a calabash of cola. "You are ready," the elder said. Acua smiled faintly. "For what?" "To teach." Word spread again, but this time not in whispers of scandal, but calls of change. Under the baobab tree, a new circle was formed, not for judgment but for healing. Acua sat at its center. Around her came girls and women and mothers. One by one, they came forward, some with trembling lips, some in quiet fury. I was touched by a cousin. I was blamed for a scar I didn't choose. I bled in silence. Then in rage, I still haven't bled, but I am still whole. And Acua listened. She did not correct. She did not preach. She only listened and held each truth like a precious stone. Then came the mothers of sons. They sat too. They asked how to teach differently, how to see past cloth, how to raise protectors, not judges. Even some young men came, ashamed, curious, soft-spoken. One brought his sister. One brought his apology. The circle widened. One evening, as the sun set behind the mango trees, a familiar face returned. Kojo. He wore no gold this time. No pride in his stride. Only dust on his feet and a carved staff in hand. He approached the circle as Acua stood. They said nothing for a long moment. Then Kojo bowed, not just from the waist but to the earth. "I was raised to see only blood," he said. "I now ask to see truth." Acua did not embrace him. But she did not turn away. "Then sit," she said simply, and he did. The village of Aboma did not become perfect overnight. But the white cloth no longer held power. Only story did. Only voice. The priest stepped down from ritual trials and instead trained 2 young girls to read the sacred texts. Nana Didi passed her mantle to Acua, and the baobab tree, it grew taller that year. They say its roots found peace. They say it whispered again, not in warning but in welcome. And sometimes on quiet nights when the drums sleep and the fire dims, you can still hear it in the wind. Truth does not destroy, it transforms.